Good to see you. It's a
Well,
lovely Saturday morning here.
it's a lovely Saturday morning. It really is actually very nice out here, which is very rare in Pennsylvania in February.
It's been a rough one. I mean, we
February?
February.
February.
We pushed this recording back like 8 times.
Yes. How do you feel today?
Much, much better. My
What is
seasonal depression was rough.
one of the things that's so difficult about recording this is if you were not in a good mental headspace, it makes it very, very difficult to do. So we try to like bulk record as much as possible, but sometimes you just like get behind and you have to get out of budget once. Um, and it is just really hard when you're not in it.
Also, and there's two of us, so both of us have to be in like a decent headspace. So
That's
like
hard.
chance of that happening is so low.
It's almost impossible for both of us to be okay at once.
Like I forget who I was telling, maybe my therapist, that it's so nice when I have an off week emotionally because you're always there to pick it up. Nikki's there to pick it up. And it's just,
Tell
it's
me
just,
more about the nice things you said in therapy about me.
and it's nice to have support, especially at work because it's the one place where you have to turn it on. And I think it's also easy to feel guilty when you're feeling that way and feel like I can't do as much as I typically do.
Yeah.
So to have support is really lovely. So I appreciate you so much.
I love
Thank you
you.
for allowing me to push this back
It
to
was, yeah,
Saturday.
Saturday. I know. I was like, fuck it, we'll do it on a Saturday, whatever. Like, because when you're like in that spot, if you make yourself do more, you're so much worse on the outcome, right? Like, what's the analogy about if your car like it's if your car gets crashed, you can keep like fucking fixing it, but isn't it just better if it doesn't crash?
Right. I don't know that analogy, but
I don't
yes.
know if that's what an analogy is, right? Or a saying. What's
I don't
I
know.
think that I need to go back to 10th grade English.
Yeah. Oh, what was your best subject, do you think?
Nothing. Skipping class and going to the guidance counselor was my best subject. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
listen, man, I wasn't made for academia. I wasn't made for
No.
school.
No.
Wasn't the world's best student.
Honestly, grad school was my favorite school.
Same. Well, what I was actually interested in everything we were talking
Same.
about. And yeah, you'd like, I just was not made for, and even like when I went to college, like the first 2 years were like bullshit gen eds. Like I can promise you I didn't need theater 101. And I know that now because I never attended the class and then I passed with a B because I bought that. I went to Penn State. They had something called Nittany Notes.
Oh
And you
yeah,
could literally just pay. Did you guys have this too? You
we
could
had
just
something
pay
like that.
like
Yeah,
$25 at the end of the class and to buy someone else's notes.
but you would think in theater 101 that would be like a participation grade.
I think it was. And that's why I got the seat.
Yeah, yeah. Because I took ballet one
Oh, did
semester.
you? That's
I did.
lovely.
I did, but it was at 9 a.m. for 3 hours, so you had to show up. So it sounds lovely, but in the end, wasn't great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we can talk about how did I make that
I
decision?
was going to say, what if you have to make a decision about a bunch of classes? And that brings us into today's episode about analysis paralysis or decision paralysis or just difficulty with decision making, whatever we'd like to call it today. That's what we're going to talk about in ShrinkChicks today.
So hard making decisions.
So tell me, yeah, well, what freezes you? Everyone has different things about what freezes them, right? From like where to go out to dinner to who to marry or have children, right? Like big life choices or small ones. Tell me what trips you up.
The things so it depends on the situation, right? If it's going out to dinner, I'm not a foodie. Like I legitimately don't care.
But you're I would call you a chicken fingers foodie. You know
I
where all the good
do.
chicken fingers are.
Oh, I love chicken fingers. So when it's going out to dinner and I say I don't care, I legitimately don't care.
Okay.
Like, I could eat whatever. If there's chicken fingers, obviously that's a plus. But other than that, I really don't care. So when I say that when I'm going out to dinner, I really mean that. The thing that trips me up in more important decisions um, is more so that I can see all sides of a situation,
Mm,
and which is difficult. It makes it difficult for me specifically to have a strong opinion about something because I'm able to see kind of all sides and how things could play out.
uh,
Does that make sense?
too much empathy for like other people and stuff too. Like you start
Exactly.
thinking about other people before yourself too.
Exactly. And it,
Uh
almost to the point where I don't know fully how I feel about a situation, because I'm like, I could see the benefit here, or I could see how this could work out well here. So usually, and we've talked about this a lot, I need to talk through things, or I need time to kind of make a decision to be able to figure that out. It doesn't become like a snap emotional decision for me. Like, that's how I process everything.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd be curious, what about for you, Em? What are the times in which you have trouble making decisions?
So mine are places that I don't feel confident about, right? So if it's like I have to make some decision, like we recently switched accountants, and like make these like certain decisions about how I was going to do this certain thing, and like that's really freezing for me, right? If it has to do with my stuff that I feel incompetent in, I guess is the thing. And so I'm so scared about making the wrong decision. I end up asking a million people, and then I get really confused, and then I just become paralyzed, right? If it's something that I don't care, like, some people like really struggle like make an outfit each day, that I'm like, I'm gonna probably wear the same fucking thing I've been wearing all week. But
Yes.
I do a lot of like set things where I don't have to make decisions, I guess is the thing, right? Like we have set routines, we have set menus in our house. There's certain meals we always know are gonna work. So like I really believe that like it helps to make decisions by taking the decision making out of it and having less options. So
Oh,
like sort
yeah.
of automating your decision making process. But for me, it is really like stuff that I feel worried about, like I mean, in this field, right? Sometimes you have to make like really shitty calls. You got a child line something or doing different
Yes.
stuff like that. Like when it affects other people, that's incredibly difficult for me.
Yes. Yeah. I would say that's a big one.
Yeah.
And I think so the reason, I think it's important to think about this is that we're being intentional and kind of trying to gain an understanding of what specifically for us makes it difficult to make decisions. So if you're listening to this, I would encourage you to do the same thing, to think about, if you're having trouble making a decision, what are the factors that are leading into that decision paralysis for you? And
Hmm.
they're different for everyone. I also think the things that trip me up now are different than what used to trip me up in the past, that it might have been way more difficult for me to make a decision than it is now. Um, and maybe that's because your life circumstances are different. Maybe that's because you're confident in different things. And so that's, I think, something to encourage, is just to think about for you specifically. I know it's easy to listen to us and say, oh, is that me? Is that me? But I really want you to think about yourself and what specifically trips you up about your decision making. How long has it been going on? Um, is it always consistent? Is it always in certain domains? Um, I also think it might be important to think about, like, what were decisions like growing up for you? I just had a memory come up for me while I was saying this.
What was it?
I was, I'm old. When I was growing up, I was like old for my grade.
Yeah. Yeah, you were.
Yeah. And so, but, when I was going into kindergarten, my parents sat me down and,
No. They
yep,
do
yes,
not tell me your parents had you choose Becca in kindergarten
that,
or not.
that they did. So
You're like, I don't know, guys, I'm 5.
let's talk about parentification there, right? I mean, really, they sat me down. I was, and this is a very specific memory for me. I
Yeah.
remember that. I mean, they were gearing it towards so what they said was, Jen, you could either go to kindergarten and be with all of your friends,
Uh,
or or you could skip kindergarten and go to first grade. And obviously,
of course, what
I was
choice is
going to
there in
be
that?
with all my friends. But I just, I'm reflecting on this because I'm thinking about how early it was put on me to make
Yeah.
big decisions. And so that's the thing I think it might be important to think about, like, how early was it put on you to make certain decisions in your life,
Mm,
and because let's say, I mean, I think it was a good decision that I made. Let's say it wasn't, right? Let's say I was really unhappy with that decision and then blamed myself for it at
yeah.
5 years old.
Yeah.
So that's something I would encourage too. Like, how early were you
No,
asked?
I'm trying not to laugh. I'm really
No,
sorry
you can
because
laugh. Please,
I'm
it's
just
ridiculous.
well, it's
It
just
is.
funny because I have a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So like thinking
Imagine
about
asking her.
yeah, sitting down and saying this, and there's a lot of stuff we do ask her decision about, right? Like we give Millie a ton of choices. She gets a lot of decisions, but something like that,
I know.
I could see myself like being like, what do you think, man? Like, you want to go and like, like you want to go visit this classroom versus this classroom. How do you feel about it? Like, I can see that, but like, I don't know, the idea of sitting her down
I remember it. I remember it. It was a
I think she
serious.
would just be like, I'm gonna fucking play now. Like, I
Yeah.
don't.
Oh, I had a very great, I mean, it speaks to maybe I was making a lot of decisions that I didn't necessarily realize that I was making at the time. Um, but yeah, I think that's something to think about is how early were you asked to make decisions in your life? Do you remember, like, were you asked to make decisions early in your life? Like, when can you remember having to make certain decisions like that?
Oh no. I mean, right. So we're different. Like you were also a highly said, like part of this is also personality trait. Somebody asked a question about, is this ADHD or do all people struggle with this? A lot of it, ADHD is huge with struggling with this. Anxiety is huge. Parentification is huge. But a lot of it's also personality trait, right? So like for me, like decision making is typically pretty fucking easy. As you know from running a business with me, that like we'll talk through something. I mean, we went to look at office space yesterday, right? And even you and your husband do it, like because I was with you and Bill, and he's like, "What about this? And what about this?" And I was like, "No, no, no! I'm fucking gung ho on this exact thing that I want here."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes my issue is more rigidity of like
Mm,
not, making the decision I want because like I am such a quick processor,
yeah.
so I don't feel like I have this like memory. But I do feel like I'm someone who has more anxiety about like afterwards if it didn't work out and then blaming myself for it.
Right.
Right. Like so that's where I think it comes in for me, which then as I got older, as a child, it wasn't a big deal. But as I've got older, then I'm like, okay, well, you've done this before, Emily. You've made this impulsive decision. So now you have to think through it. And I like try to pull myself back. And like sometimes that doesn't go so well. So I do think personality goes into it because like my kid, like how like strong is my child? Like she would be like,
I
I
was
ain't
like,
doing that fucking shit.
I was like, Millie, can I have a chip? She was like, no.
Yesterday,
I was like,
she
cool.
looked you right
She
in the
goes,
face. No.
I was like, okay, it was great to see you. I hope
Then you're like, do you want? And then I was like, do you want to give Jen a hug? And you're like, you don't have to. And she was like, no.
no, I was like, I got it. I respect that so much.
When
I
you
was
left, though, she was staring longingly into Amelia's eyes. She like had some like connection that she was like, "Are you my mother now?" It was like a very interesting thing.
oh, it's funny.
But like, so I do think part of it's like personality, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Also, like
and
everything we talk about, our personalities, it's just like all the same. I'm
yeah,
sorry if you're listening to this and we're like, yeah, we've heard this before. You guys, all of it shows up in the same exact way in every single conversation. And it's just really interesting. But this is what we talk about, getting to know yourself.
that's why you got to know yourself to grow yourself, baby. We swear to God, we go back to this thing. Okay, so
Right.
let's go through listener questions so we can go through all of this. Because we got to start with somebody said, "Well, why the fuck does this happen?"
Yeah.
Fear of regret. Fear of regret. I mean, we call it. There's a researcher who talked about like the paradox of decisions, right? Which is that paradox of opportunities. Really, like in the year 2023, we have so many different choices that isn't necessarily a good thing. You know, when you go to a restaurant and they hand you a menu the size of a poster board
I can't.
and there's 50 pages and you're like, this is the most overwhelming thing ever.
I can't. I cannot stand that. I can't stand it, but also I love it at the same time. If
Yeah.
I'm being honest, Cheesecake Factory really gets me going.
I've never been to the Cheesecake Factory. We've talked about this before.
I have to take
Um,
it there.
okay, so like this is what I mean. Like sometimes you just have too many decisions, especially if you are someone in your life. Let's say that you're in some type of family system or a workplace, or we'll even bring it back to a group project from college. Let's say you're the only person who makes decisions. When everyone else is sort of like really submissive, it puts it on you. That's a lot of pressure because it's also other people.
Mhm.
Right. So if you're on something and someone's just like, I don't care, you do it. Okay. The other day, you were having a hard day. We were going through the new colors for merch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to be honest. I don't care about this right now. Like, you're like, I'm fucking
I
depressed.
said, I literally do not give a shit. I trust you. Make whatever decision you want to make.
Right. But then in that moment, I was like, okay, we have worked together for 10 years. I know you more than anything. I know exactly what you want. And I was anxious to do it because I was like,
All right.
oh man, like, Jen, trust me. And what's this mean? Is she going to be upset? Like, because like, even in that moment, it feels like pressure and like too much power. And I guess that's something you should think like, do I have too much power in my relationships? And I think especially a lot of mothers and wives can feel this because they're carrying so much of the mental and emotional load.
Yeah. And so first, let me apologize to put that on you.
Well, I think I did really good.
You did incredible job, but also I want you to know that if I went back and didn't like any of those colors,
Yeah, what would
that
you have
was
done?
on that was on
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
There was no part of me that would have ever blamed you for that because
Yeah.
I made the decision that I was going to be taken out of that in that
I mean, I wasn't gonna pick like neon.
right.
I know you wouldn't like that.
I don't know if you can tell.
Or like when
I'm
or when I or when I tried to like really get us to do the bucket hats.
I was like, listen. Even if you picked bucket hats, I would have been like, it was my decision
Yeah.
to take myself out of it. And that is the bed that I lie in. There is no place for me to be angry. And this
Yeah.
one, it's the same thing in group projects, right? If you're in a group project and you don't contribute or take the reins and you're not happy with what someone else is doing or the choice that someone else made, that is on you.
But let's say that but okay, so my experience with you was yes, obviously this is very true.
Yeah.
But I've been in situations before where I make the decision and people are pissed about it. Well, I'm not going to say a fucking name into this recorded podcast.
Okay,
but
tell me after.
But I'm just saying, for some people, if you grew up in, like, let's say, especially your
Yes.
family of origin, if you made a decision, right? Let's say, here's an example. Let's say you had made that decision to go to first grade. You come home to your parents and you're like, I don't like it. And your parents said back to you, well, that's what you chose. And this actually does happen to people.
Yeah.
So, so then that's what I mean. So then it's like kept with you all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And so the question is, because I think another piece of this that we talked about it being fear of regret, like how and why does this happen? But also fear of affecting other people, right? Or affecting yourself, which ends up being the fear of regret. So I think that that's another piece of it too, is like, how are you affecting other people?
Yeah. And fear of being stuck in it, right? Like if I make this decision, I'll never be able to get out of it. I mean, we hear this. I mean, how many people write in about they don't know if they should have kids or not?
Yeah.
And I think that is such a big one, right? Because like if I decide to go to the Cheesecake Factory over fucking Uno's, it's whatever. I'm like, like I'll go to fucking Uno's next week or some shit, right? Like we're really into chain restaurants.
You're really in the suburbs.
I live in the middle of nowhere, guys. Right, I don't have a Cheesecake Factory. I know that would be like in a fancy place.
Yeah.
The closest chain to me is called McGurk's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God, I know McGurk's.
Really?
Yeah, there was one growing up right by me in Upper Dublin.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, suburbs, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, so so like that's an experience where you can be like, all right, this kind of sucks. I wish I didn't make this decision to go to the Cheesecake Factory. It is what it is, right? When you're making a decision about like having, like what job to take, or like I think a lot of people feel this pressure about choosing a major in college, right? How about the decision of who to fucking marry? Like these are all decisions where you feel like you are stuck in it forever. Let me tell you, any of those things, right? Except for the child kid, we're gonna talk about that in a minute, right? You can change your fucking career. You can change your major, you can get divorced, you can change, right? Like the feeling of like being stuck, I think is what keeps other people stuck. Now, when it comes to the decision of having kids, right? Somebody wrote in, this is a really important one. I have been back and forth on kids with my husband for years. We're working with a therapist and we're still undecided. It's so hard. In a situation like this, I think it's because we think that we're going to feel 100% one way or another, and you're not. I knew I wanted to have kids, and there's still a ton of shit that I wish wasn't part of having a child.
Mm-hmm.
There's still parts where I'm like, yeah, man, I really fucking wish that like I didn't have to, I could just like go out and do whatever and have complete flexibility. Like there's a possibility you're not ever going to feel 100%.
Yeah. And I know that I do not want kids, and there's still a part of me sometimes that's like, oh, it might be like, that would be cute,
Yes.
But yeah. And so I think that that's important, is there's this idea that in order to make a decision, it's almost like the idea about motivation. Like in order to do something, I have to be motivated to do it. The idea that in order to make a decision, I have to be 100% on it. And so just to know, especially with kids, because that is the one decision that you cannot change.
Yeah. And you owe it to bring a child into this world to
Yes.
show up for them.
And if you made that choice to have a child, then you've made that choice, right? And
Yeah.
that is your decision, and you move forward with it. And
But some people don't even feel like it was a choice. Like, I think especially people in our parents' generation, it's really different now.
yeah,
But there are so many people in our parents' generation that did not feel like it was actually a choice.
right. It was just what you did.
And so
But
that's the thing, is like, you do have choices and you have to break it down and think through shit. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have, like, the little cherry on top, but you have choices in life.
yeah, yeah. So let's get into some more
Okay.
questions because we have so many, and I know we're going to run out of time.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody said, just how do you make a process? I get so stuck trying to evaluate things from all sides. Oh, Jen.
Listen, that's me. I actually just listened to a podcast. I will credit her name after this, but she talked about the 5-second rule, that as soon as you have you heard this?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you have an idea to do something, count down from 5 and you have to move and like do something, because it's so easy to get stuck in this decision paralysis. So for example, like if you're trying to get something done, right? I'm either going to do the laundry right now or I'm going to take the dog for a walk. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, should I take the dog for a walk? Like this actually happens to me often. And you have to, as soon as you get the inkling to do something, you count down from 5 and you just get up and start doing it, because it's really easy when you're someone who's able to analyze things from all sides to get stuck thinking about all of the possibilities of something where it doesn't actually matter. Right? It does not matter whether I do the laundry first or take the dog out. Like that really doesn't end up affecting my day in the end. What does end up affecting my day is how much I'm thinking about it. And so to just get yourself out of that headspace to be able to make a decision to do something. And I know this is like when we're talking about very small decisions on a daily basis. So I think that that's, for the smaller decisions, that's something that can be really helpful. I think for the bigger decisions, when you can look at things from all sides and you can process things from other people's points of view, that might take a little bit longer. But I would encourage you to think about, how do I know when a decision is made based on me and my gut? And then how do I know when a decision is made based on my worry about other people or my fear about how other people are going to respond to this? And it might take some time to look at history. Like when do I know that I've made a decision for myself? And then when do I know that I made a decision for someone else that didn't feel good for me or didn't necessarily work out in the ways that I needed it to? And so I think that it takes some time in really understanding yourself and understanding what feels right for you, sitting with yourself and being quiet with yourself, journaling, talking to a therapist about it, to really understand what's coming from you and then what's coming from other people. That's where like emotional boundaries come in between you and others.
You should just text me and say, should I walk the dog or should I do it? And I'll just choose for you.
Which is so helpful.
We'll just do a coin.
I will.
Coin toss. Sports.
Sports. We both love. Speaking of, you doing anything for the Super Bowl?
No, my mom is throwing a puppy bowl party for all the kids.
That is adorable.
We are having a puppy bowl party. Well, because they fucking Super Bowl starts at 6:30. Millie goes to bed at 7:30. So we're having a puppy bowl party from 3:30 to 6:30 with hot dogs and an ice cream bar. I'm living a very different life.
Yeah, that you
what
are.
What are you doing?
That you are.
You going to a bar in the city?
Definitely not. I would rather die.
Are you going to a house party?
Yeah, I'm going to like a house, but I need to make it home by halftime or I won't be able to get home.
Yeah, you're stuck. You're stuck there. You're not going to go run out on Broad Street this time?
Oh, because I've had a tough week, being around a lot of people isn't like
not good. Yeah.
It's not going to do it for me.
Yeah. Well, you already know that decision. So that was an easy decision to make, what to do for the Super Bowl. And this will come out after the Super Bowl anyway, so nothing matters. Sorry for that completely irrelevant information. Somebody put us on a leash. Okay. Why is it so hard to make a decision, even if it's simple, like deciding where to eat? We have too many fucking options.
It's
It
so
is
hard.
really hard to make a decision when there's too many options. If you lived in a town that had 2 restaurants, you could probably choose which one you're going to go to.
It's either
But you
Uno's
can
or Cheesecake Factory.
Uno's or Cheesecake Factory. But you can automate those decisions. Here are right, like something I do, like if I order in food to the office, there's 3 restaurants that I choose from, because if not, I get on DoorDash and I could look forever.
Oh, it's like when you're searching for a movie to watch on Netflix.
And wait, 2 weeks ago, all we did was watch trailers for like an hour.
That's
Wait,
what happens because you just are watching trailers and then you don't even watch a movie after a
we were
while.
at Nikki's house. We watched a movie. We were looking for another movie to watch. And like we literally spent like 45 minutes just watching trailers. I love trailers.
I love trailers.
Right? Just give me a trailer, baby.
Right? Like
But so part of it is one, the pressure of it and what does it represent to us? Are we affecting other people? Do I have too many options? What will happen if I feel like, what am I telling myself to happen if I make the wrong decision? Is there actually a right or a wrong? It's not really a right or wrong for where you eat.
there should be an app where like for these smaller decisions that don't really end up mattering is like putting the 2 decisions in and then just clicking like a
I'm sure this is already
button.
invented. I bet that's already a thing. Somebody
We
just
should
tell us
find
what it
it.
is.
Yeah. Tell us what it is because
Yeah.
I think that we're gonna blast it because I think that'll be really important for
Yes.
anyone.
So let's go to this one. How to make the right decision for you and not based on your family's feelings. If you are someone who is greatly influenced by other people, you have to consider how much you share with other people and how much you involve them in that process. I know that I am something that I used to do when I was feeling overwhelmed is basically I tried to give my anxiety out to everyone else. So I would call a million people and talk through this, right? Especially if I was like having an issue with a friend, would want to call like A, B, and C. This turned into gossiping. It was not good, but just go with me here. I tried to spread my anxiety out, try to get everyone else's opinion, and then my head was a mess. And then I was worried about making a decision that wasn't what somebody else said and how they would feel. Right. So if you are someone who is greatly influenced, think about how much I want to involve them. And when I let them know this information of whatever I choose, how do I want to deliver that? But it does have to be separated. You can always take into consideration. Of course, if you're moving across the country, your Aunt Gammy probably doesn't want you to do that, right? That's okay. That's a reasonable thing. You don't want your family to go far, right? And is it still the best decision for you? And then, if you would like to really be very systemic about it, what is the relational attunement and the relational skill you do back? And Gammy, I know this is going to be hard. It's going to be so different. We used to see each other every Sunday. Something I'm going to do is I'm going to FaceTime you guys in. Every other week, I'm going to give you a call, right? Like you can take into consideration. You don't have to center yourself and be self-centered.
I love this because I think it's important to highlight that, you know, just because you're making a decision in your life that other people don't agree with doesn't mean that it is the wrong decision.
Woo! Say that one more time.
Just because you're making a decision in your life that other people don't agree with does not mean that it is the wrong decision. And if you're someone who is used to looking to others to validate your decisions, this might be really difficult for you. And this is where, just as you're saying, that your boundaries are so essential for this. Your boundaries in everything that you do might be really, really important, given the fact that you tend to look to others for validation in your decisions.
Okay, here's what I'd love to hear what you think about.
Okay.
How to know what I want without being concerned about others' views and consequences. That's parts of it and goes into this question. What if my partner feels differently than I do about leaving a job? Because there's 2 different aspects, the individual and the relational aspect here,
Yeah.
right? Like, do you run something you have to consider, right? Is what happens to the family system, the relationship system that you live with this person, financially, if you make something different, right? Oh, wait a second, but you had committed that we were going to split this thing down, right? So, like, you could understand how somebody could have a feeling around that. Somebody grew up with like extreme scarcity mindset. The idea of you leaving a job, that's like incredibly safe and
Mm-hmm.
secure, it's really scary to do something different. So but people, when they give you their opinions, they're always looking through their own lens. There's going to be times, if you were in a long-term marriage, if you're going to be long-term relationship, I should say, if you're going to be with someone 5 or plus fucking years, there's going to be some times y'all disagree on something. If not, what the hell? But there's going to be times where you make a decision that your partner doesn't love. How do you handle that as a couple? What happens in our relationship? And I would bring that up to your partner. If I make decisions that you don't agree with, what's that mean for us? Can you respect my decisions and respect me?
Yeah. And to allow space for the two of you to have different opinions on that decision. That, once again, just as we're saying, your partner's allowed to maybe disagree with some of the decisions that you're making. I think that the piece to talk about and to really communicate about is how that ends up affecting the relationship. Just as you're saying, how can you disagree on something and maybe have different opinions on something, but it's still, you still talk about it in a way that's supporting the relationship, right? That you don't have to agree on everything in order to have a healthy relationship and in order to have healthy communication about it. And
Yeah.
I think that that is also depending on the family you grew up in, did you have this idea of, we have to agree on everything in order to move forward with something? Everyone has to agree, right? So that isn't necessarily the case. You can disagree on something, you can have different opinions. You know, people say, agree to disagree. That it's a way to come to the table and say, we have different opinions on this, but we can still function together. We can still talk about this. We can still communicate about this. And I can still come to a decision and talk to my partner about it, even though it brings anxiety into the relationship. But know that we might disagree, but we're going to work through this together, right? We are going to figure this out together. And the fact of the matter is, just as you said, as people come to a conversation, to decision making with their own lens, that if they don't make decisions based on fear, they see you making a big decision in your life, they might project that fear onto that decision that you're making, right? That's what has kept them safe. And so for you to make a decision that they would never make because it would be too scary for them, they might project that fear. You see this a lot if someone like leaves a job and starts their own business or something.
Like we did.
Like we did. We saw that a ton. We experienced.
And everyone was basically like, these girls are idiots.
Yeah. Yeah. And but that's a perfect, and I think that is a perfect example of like family members, people were coming to us and saying, this, you guys are so young, this is going to fail, how could you possibly do this? People come with their own lens and their own fear. We still made that decision, probably more out of rebelling than anything.
I mean, spite. I mean, it's interesting, right? So like about a year ago, my husband left his job to be a stay-at-home dad. Now both of his parents worked their same jobs from they were 18 to retirement. Their entire lives, they worked the same job. So the idea that my husband just gave up this, solid job with security, they treated my husband like shit. They overworked them. You know what I mean? Like tons of people were leaving from his team. It was a mass exodus. But that was so bewildering to his parents that he would make this decision, to the point where like they thought he was like having a mental breakdown.
And how much happier is he?
I think he's so much happier. It was really overwhelming at first, right? Like it was something that like we had sort of been talking about it, and then something happened one day that he was like, I'm gonna quit right fucking now. Like it was just an insane thing that occurred that day that I was like, he called me and he's like, do you care if I do this? And I was like, I was at a coffee shop. I was like, do it.
I
He's
remember
so
that.
much happier now. Right? It wasn't perfect. That's the thing. It wasn't like he left and it was this like wonderful fucking thing. I mean, the grass is always greener. It worked out great for our family. There was a lot of stuff that was different about it. He's always like, you could never pay me to be a stay-at-home parent ever again. He's like, this is so much harder than a job. So there was stuff that was hard about it, and still it was 100% the right decision for him. But what you have to remember is oftentimes the right decision and the smart decision are not the same thing.
Wow.
They're just not.
Wow.
Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not.
And this goes back to the conversation around making the choice to have children or making any decision that like it's going to come with its challenges. It does
Yeah.
not mean that you made the wrong decision because it has challenges or it's, you're having like a difficult time transitioning in that, or there are certain things about maybe your old job that you miss, right? But just because there are challenges in that does not mean that you made the wrong decision. And so I think that that's just an important thing to highlight. But
Yeah.
we got to get into Dear Em and
Okay.
Jen.
Sorry.
That's
All right.
okay.
Wait, you read.
Okay. Currently, sorry. Dear Em and Jen, my bad. Dear Em and Jen, currently I'm looking to change jobs and have found myself with great offers, but I feel like I want none of them. I'm fortunate enough to be a little picky right now, but I'm not sure how to figure out if I don't want them because they aren't the right fit, or if I don't want them because I'm too paralyzed to move out of my comfort zone. How can I sort through the gut intuition and feel more confident in my decision?
Mm. So one I would check in about, I would literally like take a piece of paper out and I would write out like, here's my comfort zone. What's keeping me here? Right? Like I would actually map this out on a piece of paper, get it out of your head and say like, okay, like here are these different jobs. What are the things that aren't working about them? If you can choose to be picky, go on and be picky with your bad self. I think that is fabulous. And is there some possibility here, right? That you're keeping yourself from doing something scary and new? Because most things are scary and new, and that is really hard.
Yes. Also, could both things be true? Whoa.
Do things at once, never
Like
duality.
can it, can it be hard to step out of your comfort zone? And maybe they're also not the right fit, or maybe parts of them are the right fit and not the entire thing is the right fit. So once again, we go back to this idea that if I make this decision, then all parts of this have to be perfect because I left my comfort zone in order to do this.
Yeah.
It's very possible that you might leave your comfort zone. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to get maybe a new job. Parts of it might be the right fit and parts of it might not be the right fit.
Yeah.
But be picky about it. If you can find something that feels like a better fit for you, then wait for it. But I also think it goes back to this idea is that I have to be 100% ready, and I will be ready to step out of my comfort zone in order to make this decision when I have the right fit, when that might not necessarily be true. Your comfort zone is called your comfort zone for a reason. We love it there. I love to be in my comfort zone. Where's your comfort zone? Mine's in my bed.
Mine's in the same sweatsuit I've been wearing for like 4 days. Minute, physically right now.
So yeah, I think that your comfort zone is called your comfort zone for a reason, and that it's going to be uncomfortable no matter what. Even if you find a job that feels like a good fit for you, it's still going to be uncomfortable to step out of your comfort zone. And here's the thing. Let's say you get a new job, you're in it, doesn't feel like the right fit. You can always look for another one.
Yeah, you can. And also, like, everyone says like this thing of like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. That's just not true. I fucking love what I do. And it's still a goddamn job. I don't know who is saying this. And that if you feel that way, congratulations. But like, there is still, of any job, some bullshit, tedious shit you don't want to do.
Also, like, people say you never work a day in your life if you love your job. Like, there are days I feel that, but there's also days I definitely don't feel that.
Yes, 100%. And everything can exist. Duality, hold the complexity. I know. All right. Well, hey, if you enjoyed today's episode and you're not too paralyzed thinking about the decision, send it on over to a friend. We ask you to rate, review, subscribe, follow at Apple Podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. You can follow us at ShrinkChicks on Instagram. We would love to set you up with an amazing clinician if you're in the market looking for a new therapist and you're located in the states of Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Florida, and California. You can do in-person or Rittenhouse right in the city of Philadelphia and Westchester, PA. What did I miss?
If you are a therapist and you are listening to this and you reside or you have a license in any of those states,
we'd love to hire you.
We would love to hire you. Send over your resume if you're interested. You will get an interview with us.
Yeah. Those are fun. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode of ShrinkChicks. We have new merch out. Go get yourself a sweet ass sweatsuit that I helped pick the colors out and got very nervous about, Jen. We love you. We'll see you next week. And don't forget that to grow yourself, you got to know yourself. Bye.